All right, the drawing glove is on. What about the coffee? You ask. Well, you didn't ask. You just offered. Oh, the information about the coffee. All right, it is 2:04. And this stream is off to a very slow start. Let's see what we can do. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if Jim, your ad attacker, would like to join us on the call here. I see there's one person who's tuned in now. Please announce yourself. Anyway, I'm going to send Jim a quick email. Actually, what I'm going to do first is start the Zoom call. So... Oh, wait, there's Danny. Danny, the Reverend Nemu. Where is he? No, not today. Tomorrow or Wednesday works, though. Alrighty, I'll get back to him on that. Please moderate. What? Ah. Alright. Here, let me show you a comment. Oh, there's action in the chat. Kevin. Hello. Welcome aboard. I'm a little disorganized on today's live stream, but there's very few people here to witness my disorganization so far. Where are you? Jim D. Gots to sign into chat. Hey, Jim, I was wondering if you would want to join me on a Zoom call for this live stream. We can carry on the conversation. Lancaster. Let's see. I had gone to my email to find that call information. Let's see. Here we are. Let's see. All right. Kevin and Jim, I have just forwarded an email that I had sent to Dermot last week, but the call information is the same if you want to jump in. I am not personally on the call just yet, so I better open that meeting. Let's see. Join with video. You can see my desperate need of a haircut. Doesn't show so much from the front, it's more from the side and the back. Here, I'll throw it over on the, throw it over here. Look at all this nice stuff. Very, very Guido, huh? Alrighty, let's see what's in the restream. Okay, Jim says sure. Let me get my headset. Or do I need a link or login? I sent you the link via email just now. And Kevin's going to get on board as well. All right. Maybe I need to check my Zoom audio because I'm not hearing anything. Let's see. Let's test speakers and microphone. Oh yeah, I hear that. Check, check, check. Yeah, it looks like I'm good. Check. All right, all done. Put that away. All right, well, the Zoom call is on. Hey, Ed, how you doing? The rumpus today is maybe a bit hungover.
Checkity check.
Hey, Jim.
Howdy.
Howdy. So you done worked already today?
Yep, put in my full 5 hours.
All right. I see there's slave drivers there at the, what do you call your organization? Oh, Jim, you will want to mute the audio on the YouTube video.
You are correct. Let me do that now. Okay. Live video muted.
Awesome. All right, so I went to call your employer the Seattle equivalent of the MTA, but I'm sure it has its own acronym.
It does. Yeah. It goes by Metro.
Okay. Alrighty, so you've already put in your 5 hours.
Oh, you know what? I think my camera is unplugged. I'm not sure if that's going to be a good thing for you or not.
Oh, I won't be looking at any video, so it doesn't really matter.
All right. No problem then.
Here, you can see me for just a minute. my unshorn glory. It's really getting kind of unfortunate in the back there.
Oh, I did the razor thing, so I'm completely shorn.
Ah.
Well, electric trimmers.
Right.
Razors are a little too varsity league for me.
You know, if it weren't for a little online romance I've got going, I'd probably do the same, but I don't think my girlfriend would really want to see my shaved head.
Yeah, you have to prove that you can grow it out before you can shave it comfortably.
I mean, I have pictures of me with a shaved head. I failed that test
years ago.
I shaved my head, I guess it was 2019, or was it 2018? 2018, I think. Just on a whim, got out the electric razor and just took it all off.
It's kind of liberating.
It is. It is.
Let's see. Do I need to wake up right now and take a shower, or I could sleep another 10 minutes?
Well, my life is organized such that I never have to make those sorts of decisions, or almost never.
Well, you have to get out of bed eventually.
Oh, I get out of bed.
Actually, no. Maybe
I get out of bed before the sun comes up most days. But
it's saying some. Well, of course, it's December.
Yeah, in New England.
Yeah. Are you at a higher latitude than Seattle?
I think we're about the same.
Yeah. I think we're at 47.
Alexa, what's my latitude?
The latitude for Bellows Falls, Vermont is 43.1345 degrees north.
Oh, you're southern, boy.
Yeah. Way down south.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
You can't, Alexa. Yeah. You can't.
No.
My friends have a talking can, and God, we just yell at it at full volume when it gets something wrong. I hope it goes a little bit crazy.
I'm trying to curry favor with the future techno overlords, so I'm polite to the robot there, whose name I won't mention. But I always say please and thank you. Well, thank you anyway, not please.
Oh, I should plug in a camera if we're all doing it. I don't want to be one of the uncool kids.
Oh, let's see. Is Kevin on the line?
He is.
Oh. Hey, can you see me? See me? I saw your invite, KMO.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm not looking at Zoom video. I'm just drawing my pictures here.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Right on.
Yeah.
Hey, right on, guys.
All right. So, Kevin, Jim, I don't think the two of you have met.
No, I don't. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I hear you, Jim.
So, Kevin's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Been there, actually.
Have you?
I'm getting good. The audio's really delayed.
It's really delayed on the video. You should mute the video. Just listen to the Zoom call.
Okay.
Mute the YouTube video.
Yeah, mute the YouTube video.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, right. Let me do that.
The YouTube video says live.
Yeah.
It's really advisory.
Yeah, there should be scare quotes around
Done.
live there.
Okay, good. All right.
Alrighty. So you may have heard Jim's voice before. He does a podcast called Attack Ads, and he's been a guest on the C-Realm on multiple occasions. And Jim and I were going to talk about a post that Dmitry Orlov put out, I think just to his paid followers. Somebody sent it to me, and I can't read it aloud out to the world because it is a behind the paywall sort of thing. But I summarized it, and Dmitry basically is, I can't tell how much conspiracy he's theorizing, but he says, imagine that evil geniuses run the economic world, not in Russia or China, but, the rest of the world. And they really want to put the screws to the U.S. They basically want to use up, what's left to be used in the U.S. and then hang it out to dry. And he says that the COVID response has, been designed with that end in mind. And Jim, I think you've read the piece more recently than I have. Am I twisting it severely here, or is that pretty much what he has to say?
No, that's pretty close. It does seem to me to be an explanation for the COVID response, if not the COVID virus itself.
Yeah, I don't recall anything in there where he explicitly said that the virus was deliberately engineered. Although, from my perspective, that's not beyond the pale.
Well, no, but go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was going to say, there's enough evidence, I believe, out there, and I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, that this virus did originate in a lab in Wuhan. I mean, even the Chinese have admitted it came from the lab, only its release was unintentional, which I also buy. My big issue with the virus is, what are the Chinese doing with a level 4 lab anyway? I mean, these are the people that build cities with no one in them, wind farms with no hookup to utilities. You can't believe any of the accounting data coming out of any of the companies they list on their stock exchange. So,
well, Dimitri's got a particular brand, and his brand is pretty anti-American these days. So, in his narrative, China and Russia are pretty heroic actors in this.
I don't see China as heroic myself. Are you referring to one of his blogs that he did on November 30th where he talks about the election?
No. Let's see.
Okay, I missed whatever that is. Okay.
Well, somebody sent me a PDF of it. It's clearly for people behind a paywall. So It's not a public post that he's put out. Let's see. I'll find that. Here we are. No, that's not it.
Okay. Because sometimes I read his, because I'm behind his paywall. I do have a subscription, and but I just don't recall that one.
Okay. Well, if you're already behind the paywall, then I can send you this with no reservations.
Great.
So I have just forwarded the email to you. Outing my source in the process, so
I know, mum's the word.
All right. So, Kevin, this program that I'm drawing in, this is Adobe Fresco. This is Adobe's answer to a very popular art program for the iPad called Procreate. And it's meant to be used with a touchscreen device, and I'm not using it with the touchscreen device. I'm just using it in my Cintiq here. And that means I can't zoom in. So zooming in and out is, would be a pinch and the opposite of the pinch, whatever that is called. And I can't do any of that. So this is a fun program for me to warm up in because I can't get lost in the details. I cannot zoom in at all. So it's just like a piece of paper, and I'm not precious about it, and I just scribble for a while.
Now, do you have the layers and everything that you have with the other programs?
Yeah, layers are over here on the side. Really, everything is reachable except zoom in and zoom out. That I just can't do. And like I say, for my purposes, that's kind of useful. But it's got a neat feature, and that is I can export the drawing that I've just done here as a time-lapse video.
Oh, so, nifty.
Yeah, I'm generating a preview now, and you'll see it like in a minute and a half, I think.
Is that Madam?
Madam?
Wow, a ventriloquist puppet from 70s, early 80s.
Oh. I don't know. I'm just scribbling here.
Of course, it has wings as opposed to her little spindly arms, but...
Oh,
For some reason,
I
it
think I
looks
remember
like
Madam. She was like a rod puppet. Like
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Like a part rod, part hand puppet.
Right. So anyway, from my perspective now, the drawing is recreating itself at speed. You'll probably see that in a few seconds here.
Right, there it is.
I'll time it with a calendar.
Now, I'm sure an hourglass would work just fine.
Actually, I should also push play. Yeah, where's that? No, I shouldn't push play.
No, I don't think you have any control
There we
over
go.
that. So
Now that's pretty cool.
All right. We'll advance it here.
Alrighty, so let's grab another layer. Show you another fun thing I like to do. This is almost meditative. This is very fun. Turn off these layers and let's see. Let's make it greenish. Come on. Now, there are tools called rakes, which I find very meditative. Grab a rake here. Come on. Oh, helps if I draw on it with a different color than the one that's already down there. There we are. Okay, so let's go a little darker and let's make the rake bigger. There we are. So you ever seen like monks at a Buddhist temple taking rakes and just raking the gravel in the Zen garden?
Zen, like a Zen garden kind of thing.
Yeah, the pebble gardens.
So that's kind of what this feels like to me. Just raking the gravel. I sometimes think about doing a sort of Bob Ross type presentation where I'm just talking in a very, very calm and reassuring voice, very, very happy tone. You don't even really care what I'm drawing. You've just tuned in to
Let's
feel
put a sunset
calm.
in there.
Yeah. All right.
We're going to put a happy little tree over here.
There you go. Now, did anybody ever watch Bill Alexander? Because
no, because I couldn't draw to save my life, so no.
Well, Bob Ross's technique, where he can crank out a finished painting in 20 minutes, and sometimes have enough time to overdo it and like go too far with it. That's all taken from a guy named Bill Alexander, who had a show on PBS, a painting show, using this exact wet-on-wet method that Bob Ross was famous for. And,
I've seen him. Yeah, he's the one who would like grab toilet paper and use that instead of a brush.
Yes, or where he talks about his almighty fan brush that he likes to paint with. So he's more commanding and more German than Bob Ross, but the painting style is identical. And basically, Bob Ross just took it from Bill Alexander, and also took the whole video format and just stole everything from his master. And did better with it than the master did, in terms of success. Alrighty.
Yeah, I'm reading through Dimitri's article now. Yeah, I missed this one.
So I don't read his stuff regularly. So, some of what he had to say in there, I sort of had to try to read between the lines without any guidepost, or without any Rosetta Stone to help me.
Mm-hmm. So. Nothing. When I've read I read his stuff, and we do communicate from time to time. I don't find anything untruthful about what he says. I think what it could be is just a matter of what is accentuated in his writings. And one of the problems I think here in the U.S. is we over accentuate a Russian threat while at the same time minimizing the Chinese threat to the U.S. And I look back on the Soviet era KGB. And the KGB was all but a for-profit organization in that it more than paid for itself with the technology it was able to steal from the West. I mean, China today makes them look like pikers when you think about the tech transfer that goes on. And it's not even clandestine. I mean, it's just moved via email, whether it's at the National Institutes of Health, where there have been FBI investigations and convictions. But it's all over. They've impregnated our, and it's all just coming out now. Their Ministry of State Security probably has about 2 million assets operating in the world right now, bringing in technology. So, yeah, I mean, I think we've chosen for some bizarre reason to demonize the Russians when we really should be, I think, focused more on the Chinese threat.
Now, Kevin, do you think it might be because of the mainstream connection and the Russian interference in the election and those more recent topical things since 2016 that we overemphasize the Russians?
Right. Well, I think it does stem from 2016 to the dossier, which has been proven to be a piece of opposition research that was designed to take down Trump in the campaign. And when it didn't, we began to see just how deep the tentacles ran into the deep state. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's still a bunch of trolls on Facebook who spent about $50,000. And that's the only thing that can be pointed to. Whereas Clinton spent almost $1 billion on her campaign and didn't win. So, yeah, I think we had what the deep state did was they demonized the Russians, and why not? I mean, they're really not. I mean, of what utility are they to the United States at this point, other than more of a hindrance? And
one thing that comes to mind right away is that the people are demonizing tend to be those, and this is my focus, of course, who rely on revenue from advertising. So they can't exactly demonize the Russians and say, those people bought ads on Facebook, without completely looking hypocritical, because they're getting lots and lots of revenue to broadcast literal ads on their little formats between the times that they speak. So by overemphasizing the Russians, they have essentially deflected blame for the loss of Hillary Clinton in 2016, which they are largely responsible for themselves.
That's actually a great way to phrase it, I think. I mean, you put up an unlikable candidate like Hillary Clinton, and you put her against a Donald Trump who understands human nature, I think, as much as anyone does who's a player in politics, and he just clocked her. I mean, he basically decapitated his 12 rivals in the primary. I mean, that should have been telling to anyone what was going to happen in the general.
Yeah, well, she came in as a politician, and he came in as a reality show star. So he's a troll, and she's trying to be civil and civic and really did a good job, except when she branded half of his supporters as the basket of deplorables, which gave him enough material to just bury her the rest of the way, sadly.
Do you guys remember that the second debate? And because there were 3 debates, and he did really well on the first one. And then the second one, he pretty much lost. That seemed to be the consensus. And I mean, I was watching and thinking, wait a minute, Trump, she's wide open, hit her. And nothing. And then the third debate, he clocked her, and you should be in jail, and I'm thinking it's almost like he was playing her. It's like, okay, I'm going to cede the second one because it's like if you go to Vegas and you win all the time, big deal. But it's when you lose and you feel you got to get that mojo back. I mean, all those people were in there. Come on, Trump, do it this time. And it's almost like you said, that reality show, that ability to understand the audience and throw them the red meat at the right time. He seemed to be able to do just better than anyone else. And in a way, I think that election, the 2016 election, was supposed to be between Clinton and Jeb Bush. I don't think Trump was in the cards at all.
According to the movers and shakers that Dmitry Orlov is suggesting are actually in charge.
Right. And I think I do agree with Dmitry that there is a deep state. There are vested interests in. I see the United States as this multi-trillion-dollar enterprise that they're just not going to trust anyone to run. They're going to be vetted very closely to make sure that they're not going to, take it off course or do something, God forbid they do what the people might mandate. So, I mean, I'm sure I sound like a conspiracy theorist at this point.
Well,
but
no, I kind of work for them. I'm a very small cog. I drive a bus. They don't let the wheels of the bus go round and round with anybody at the helm. It's a bureaucracy, of course. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you have to factor in, like you were saying, the Russians got technology and was able to self-sustain themselves. The KGB was able to self-fund. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, very effectively, too.
What were the technologies they went after? I'm curious.
Oh, when you look at, for instance, Northrop Grumman, they had, I forget the name of the fellow, they bought him initially, they paid him $50,000. And the KGB was very good. Their human intelligence operations were really good with respect to targeting tech companies, the defense contractors. I mean, that's how they got our stealth technology, and they did it through really human intelligence.
Okay. I was just going to say our own CIA, as far as I can read, has been funding itself since the church investigations in the 70s, the church committee in the 70s. They have simply gone to growing opium overseas and distributing it as heroin in the United States mainly. Originally it was targeted by race, but, they branched out.
Yeah, for every buck you put in, you get 10 back. What a racket, huh?
Not too bad. Then they get the U.S. military to guard the poppy fields in Afghanistan, and before that in Cambodia and Laos. I mean, that's well documented. Mm-hmm. They're just behind the times, being drug pushers instead of tech millionaires.
Yeah, think about it. Yeah,
it's simpler. I mean, you have to expend a lot of money to build a microchip factory.
Yeah,
you have to spend to plant a poppy.
And make sure that the people over there are favorably disposed to it. Because, I had a lot of issues with the Taliban, destroying century-old architecture.
The Buddhas.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, they had pretty much ended, as I understood it, they ended the poppy trade, too.
Yes, exactly. And many theories said, I don't subscribe to any theory I'm not a part of. Many theories say that's why we went into Afghanistan. But whatever.
But above our pay grades, I think.
Definitely.
But in terms of pay grade,
you look in the background, you can see the CRT television.
Yeah.
In my defense, I need that for my video game because my video game plays a lot slower on an LCD, and I lose points.
Well, what do you play?
It's a silly game on the Wii. You probably never heard of it. It's a little sub-game in something called Wii Party. It's Tetris-based, but a lot more fun.
Tetris-based, you said?
Oh, wow.
It's based on the game Tetris, but it's a premium. It's like one of the many Tetris clones, but they kind of added some features. It's addictive. That's all.
Well, my problem is I'm a compulsive obsessive, And that's why I stopped playing games in like 2004, or was it 2005? Something around there, 2005, 2006, somewhere around
An
there.
actual obsessive compulsive would know the date.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably would, but because I was really into Age of Empires. And I would literally watch the sun come up, as
Civilization 4 did that to me.
I am not being productive here, and I just had to get rid of everything.
I bounced back and forth when all my friends made the migration from Diablo 2 to World of Warcraft. I decided, no, I won't survive if all I do is play this and shit. That's all. I just gave it up, and they were so angry that I wouldn't join them. Like, sorry guys, I can see where this is going.
Yep, really is addictive.
Indeed. So Kevin,
So
I don't think that Jim knows that you sat at a table with our illustrious president earlier this year.
I did. Yeah. Spent an hour with the president on August 3rd.
Is this your version of Operation Valkyrie?
In a way, yeah, because it really was a scheme to get in front of him. And it started with me reading an article in The Intercept about these Tennessee Valley Authority workers, the tech workers, about 200 of them that were about to get displaced by companies that were going to outsource the work to H-1B visa dependent companies. So being someone who knows a bit about employment, employment non-immigrant visa programs like H-1B, OPT, L1, O, all these, I went down there and spoke at a rally, and then driving back up to the Shenandoah Valley, thought, the only person who could stop this is Trump, because the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, is this quasi-public-private organization. It's quasi-federal, it's quasi-private utility. And the president does select the board members, not the CEO, but the board members, and the board, of course, hires and fires the CEO. So I got together with this agency and our in-house folks, and we created a 30-second ad. And the ad was, as Trump described it, he said it was vicious, but it made him think. And we went after Trump and this guy Lyash, who was the CEO for TVA, basically saying, Trump, how could you allow this to happen? You said you were going to be an America First kind of guy. And here they are displacing these workers, and jobs are going to these H-1B visa dependent companies. And the ad wasn't the big issue. It was getting it in front of Trump. And we ended up we bought time on cable news channels that we knew he watched. For instance, Tucker Carlson, that's where he saw it. And I was having dinner in Alexandria, Virginia one night with an attorney, and all of a sudden my phone just blew up. People going, Trump just tweeted you. And he basically called us fake news. And everyone knows I hate that guy, the CEO of TVA. And by the way, who are these U.S. tech worker people? And then Trump started getting ratioed by people like Ann Coulter, Michelle Malkin, who were saying, hey, you need to be talking to these guys. And then I got a call from the White House, and they said, hey, can you get together about 40 workers in Knoxville for Trump to visit with? And I said, sure. And then later it was like, can you get, some workers up to D.C.? And we did that. So on August 3rd, we went into the cabinet room with 8 TVA workers, and we were there with Trump, Pence, Scalia, Cuccinelli, several others. We spent an hour with them, and he ended up firing the chairman of TVA and one of the directors. And then during that talk, the CEO of TVA called to say they were rethinking their decision on outsourcing these jobs. And, the net result was we got an executive order that, at least as far as federal agencies went, that they would stop outsourcing to H-1B visa dependent companies. And, 200 workers were able to save their jobs.
Nice.
Now, do you think that Biden is going to reverse that executive order?
Yeah, it's not looking good. From those who were, like me, kind of restrictionists when it comes to immigration and wanting to see it better regulated and making it work for the workers, it's probably not going to go well for us in this administration coming up.
I think all bets are off after Bernie Sanders. I mean, that was enough of an existential threat to the Democratic Party that they are going to take some of those issues more seriously. The question, I think, is going to be which ones. And immigration, I mean, given what Obama got away with as far as reversing immigration in the wrong direction for
oh, right.
South,
like he
Latin
greatly expanded the OPT, the optional practical training program.
I was actually referring to the unlawful detention and export, or detention and deportation.
Yeah, I think what we'll it'll be interesting to see, because Biden was part of that administration, so we might even see, Biden becoming the deporter in chief again. But the problem, the issue is the corporations, the chambers of commerce, they want a supply of cheap labor. I've been working, when we initially began my organization, we were looking at how immigration was impacting people at the lower skills end of the spectrum, only to find that these non-immigrant work visa programs were threatening people with degrees. We've seen displacement of workers at places like Disney, Abbott Labs, Northeast Utilities, SoCal Edison, hundreds of companies that have simply, initially displaced their workers with consulting firms that then would offshore many of those jobs to low rent countries like India. And that's been really destructive to the productive class here in America. And
absolutely. I mean, I drive a bus through Microsoft, so I see it firsthand.
Okay, right.
And I have 3 brothers who've worked for Microsoft in the past. They can give me the lowdown skinny on, one of them went to India to train people how to do his job.
God.
He was moved to another department after that.
Wow.
Well, Jason is a different animal anyway. I don't know if you can crush his soul easily.
Is it that he doesn't have one?
Oh, no. He has a soul. He's just,
okay.
He takes things in a different priority.
Gotcha. Well,
he thoroughly enjoyed India.
That's kind of been one of the problems with tech workers in the country is they've not done. And if 2 decades ago, when they were first coming in saying, hey, train your replacement, or, if they would have acted collectively and said, no, if you want us to train our replacements, well, we're going to walk out today. We don't need a 6-month severance package.
Now, maybe this is something, just a general theory, a niggling feeling that I've had that is not really a firm held thought, but my experience is that a lot of tech workers lean so far to libertarian that Ayn Rand is smiling.
Yeah, boy, Jim, I think you're spot on there. And they've used it. It's like an Achilles heel in a way, because ultimately, I mean, when you look at the labor movements, my great grandfather came to the U.S. from Lithuania, and he went to work in the coal mines. Died of black lung, but he was an activist. He was one of the Slavic activists that were working with the Irish and the Germans. And, you have to fight for anything in this world, ultimately. And
I'm right now in the middle of listening to an audiobook of King Cole by Upton Sinclair.
Holy shit! Wow.
So that's perfect timing. What you said right there. I don't know if you've read that one, but you.
I have not. I have not. But right. I'm going to have to, because I mean, we forget things like the Hazleton Massacre. Yeah.
Oh, the Colorado coal strike that went how many months? Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm right now working through all the Sinclairs, but it's free. It's online, the audiobook version. LibriVox on King Cole. Also the Money Changers. But yeah, what went on in the coal mines before the labor movement really got a foothold? Just incredible. Nobody today would put up with it.
No. And it's not that long ago that the real gains were made. I recall I went out to Pittsburgh, and as I was driving across the country, stayed the night with a couple that grew up with my father. And, she was adamant. She said, look, we weren't supposed to have a house like this or cars or anything. Unions gave us that. And so it speaks to collective action. And if workers can't band together effectively, they're toast. Because right now, the impression that I get from the tech worker community, and having been involved with them for about 3 years, is, great people, but there's this belief that, wow, I'm really good and they'll never fire me. They'll probably get rid of all the chaff there, but I'm going to be fine. And then eventually they're not. And,
right.
That's tragic, because, it's interesting. It's only this year. You mentioned Microsoft. I know someone, an activist, who works with Microsoft as a contractor, as many people do anymore. And this was the first year in 10 that he's gotten any kind of a raise. I mean, like he said, if you look in terms of real wages, I'm making way less than I was 20 years ago. When you look at the inflation, but this was the first year, and he got like a $40,000 raise. Why? Because we really tightened up the market. One of the benefits of COVID was the pipeline of labor from overseas got cut off.
Oh yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah. Yeah, I work. I do a little union work in my workplace, so I wouldn't call myself an expert at all, even though they call me the chief shop steward.
Okay.
I'm really just a functionary trying to make sure that my brothers and sisters don't get overly screwed over, by blatant disregard of contract, things like that.
Because that's about all. I mean, you're really, I feel in a way, someone like yourself, you're that character Hodor from Game of Thrones. All you can do is hold the door against the demons from coming in.
While they rip you to pieces.
I'm now demonstrating that I may be that articulate. I like to think I know more than one word.
Yeah, but as a shop steward, what was it? I grew up in the shadow of Bethlehem Steel, so we would run in my family. It was really both management and union and workers who would come over and spend Friday night dining and drinking with my mom and dad, and the stories. Like the manager's like, you want to be a shop steward. You gotta have the biggest mouth, because they're the ones. I was like, and then the union are like, we know they got contracts ready to go. As soon as we give in, they'll make all these profits. So it's a struggle, and it's too bad, because from what little I know of Germany, they seem to work the management and workers are collective.
But in Germany, something happened. It was part of the Reconstruction, and it was under Eisenhower. Sinclair goes into this a little bit in his Lanny Budd series. He went in and pointed out that after the Nazis were defeated, we had the occupations from the four major Axis powers, and actually Russia, Britain, France, U.S. They then tried to get their industry restarted. Well, in the U.S., the generals were going, okay, well, this guy is going to be perfect. He ran it before. And all of his subordinates, which were dyed-in-the-wool Union people, they weren't officers of high rank. They were Union people. They said, General, he's a Nazi. He's one of the reasons. Yeah. He's one of the reasons that the Nazi Party gained traction. And actually, I think DuPont gave them, or IG Farben through DuPont's nylon gave the brown shirts their brown shirts. I mean, things went way back. You had IBM giving them the punch card system to sort out all these people they were loading onto lie-covered boxcars. Wow. So they went in and convinced the generals that there had to be some check, not just on political power, but on corporate power. And so one of the arrangements they came up with was something that the New Dealers pointed out might work. In every corporation in Germany, by law, 1/2 of the board of the corporation has to be comprised of workers. So for 1 year, you're a member of the board, even though you're the gardener, or you take out the trash, or you clean the toilets, or you work on the line building the Volkswagens or the Mercedes or the Porsches or whatever it is. So you have this rotating counterweight to a typical corporate board. And because of that, they also recognize that unions are important, and unions can work with the board and with the corporation rather than be the adversarial system that we have in the U.S. today.
And it seems to work really well. I was in Berlin, and I ran into a guy who was a salesman for a HO train manufacturer. They made model trains.
Do you remember the company?
I do not. That's just it, because it wasn't a name that I was familiar with, but they seem to be very high quality in the way he described them.
Because I think I have some of those.
Okay. And
I just don't remember the name.
Yeah. He goes, God, in America, what you do is like anathema to us. When you have a downturn, you lay off all these people.
Yes.
Whereas we know things will come back, and we're going to need them, so we all take a cut. Management down, everyone just takes a cut. They try do everything they can not to get rid of people. And as a result, that builds loyalty and integrity. And
they go to a 3-day work week for the line. They cut back on bonuses, and they get through it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, here in King County, a couple of years ago, Daimler developed a hybrid drive system specifically for transit.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having a diesel engine pushing the thing around and then idling and then pushing the thing around idling, they had a much smaller diesel engine that did nothing but generate electricity. And they had a big traction motor drive the bus. And then they had a bank of batteries, and it would serve as kind of a surge capacitor, absorbing the load from the generator. So you got a pretty decent reduction in fuel consumption, and because you could run the diesel constantly, you had much cleaner emissions. Win-win. So they decided to get into the North American market. They bought a company in Oneida, New York. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Oneida. Mm-hmm.
Oneida, okay. It was called Orion. And they started putting out the Orion buses with the Daimler drive, and then very abruptly they pulled out. They closed the factory. All they did was fill existing orders, and our operation was one of the last ones they were filling, and supply parts for the length of their warranty. My theory is that when they went into the North American market, they went in with the idea that this is a civilized country, so like Germany, they would, during economic downturns, simply spend on public municipal infrastructure, and during upturns they would, that way you balance out the payments. No. Bus companies, organizations, municipalities are at the whims of the tax base, and so they actually lay off and they cancel orders during economic downturns. And Daimler just looked at that and says, you barbarians, we are out of here.
Yeah, you got to pay your B&O tax. You got to pay your property taxes. Yeah. And all that goes down and down. That was the nice thing, oddly, about Prop 13 in California, where in the 70s there was a taxpayer revolt. And what they said is the most, you can do is that the property tax on a building will be no more than 1.2%, and the increases are limited to this year over year. Now, LA would say it was that starved it of cash and everything, but really I think it just prevented a lot of bad behavior, because when that big downturn in 2008 hit, the revenues for the county weren't that badly impacted. Where they were impacted were the fast growth. Ventura County, Riverside County, where they're getting this property tax revenue from all these new builds, and it really messed them up. Whereas, LA County could count on this, and Orange County as well, a very consistent stream of revenue.
Yeah, well, the problem I can see with that, and having talked to people who've owned property in California, you move into a neighborhood and some people have been there for a long time, you're paying 4 times in property taxes what your neighbor is.
Yeah.
Which I can totally understand. If you're a little old lady on a pension, fixed income, you don't want your property taxes going up like the ones around here having to sell your property and move out. But on the other hand, it really fixes those who are in early as far as the economic elite.
Well, what they found, oddly, they did find a lot of this property does churn over the years. You would have like a Disney, that park isn't going anywhere, but those are really the exceptions. Property does tend to churn, and I was like that when I lived in Altadena. My neighbor had a great big place. He had been, his whole career a longshoreman, so he'd been there over 20 years. And compared to the small place that I was living in, his property tax was way less than mine. But, again, you can count on, at least what's going to happen, as opposed to like Arizona and Texas, where it's based on the values. And if the values go up, your property taxes go up.
Well, I'm in that situation here in Washington. So, yeah, it would be nice to have some kind of limiting factor on the property tax increases, but it's not so much that we can't afford it yet. Well, two houses down, they sold for $2 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. King County. Because the driver in California was that, values were just shooting up, and the assessors, the counties, all they had to do was say, all right, we could easily double the property tax based on the value, but let's just hold it to 10% of what we brought in last year. But they wouldn't do it. The arrogant bastards just wouldn't do it. They literally forced that revolt. Yeah. And any thinking person, because people really were being pushed out of their homes.
Yeah.
It just shows the ineptitude of government.
Government is this massive machine, and somebody online put it very well years ago. Government is a bunch of people, and the more you have, the more problems you have. And he said, the larger the collective of people, the more likely it will be impossible to distinguish incompetence from malice.
I like it.
And when you have a big state like California managing all kinds of resources, when you have elected officials that come in and promise the moon but want to deliver the stars, when you have all this pressure on the lowly assessors and the tax revenue people, you have just a recipe for disaster without some kind of controlling legislation like 13 became.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And in a way, this goes back to that small is beautiful concept. I live in a small city now of 55,000. And, when we began to experience the troubles, I'll call it the troubles, the Antifa and, in one case it did get to rioting, like Philadelphia, D.C., Portland, Seattle. Being a small city,
Just a couple of miles away from Chaz, baby.
Yeah. Woo! You gotta get some photos of that.
It's over now, so it's not a big deal. But that one friend we have that lived there loved it, and she's 80.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. No, for her it was like the 60s. I mean, everybody focused in the media about how lawless and chaotic it was. Really, it wasn't that. It was very different. But then you have all kinds of elements coming in to play with the party. That's where things get broken.
Well, that's where things got odd with us. But like I was saying, being a small town, the stakeholders were able to grab a hold of the mayor and the city council and like, no. We've invested this many millions of dollars in the city, and you will not allow it to fail. And things just changed overnight. The legal system kicked in, like there was something of a small riot on a Sunday night. Monday morning, the judge gave each of the 8 people that were detained $1 million bail each. And that kind of sent a shockwave through the system, and it was like all of a sudden my city was no longer open for these kind of activities. And by the way, as you had mentioned, we know who the outside provocateurs are. We have you on video, and we know the people you've been collaborating with. So,
well, we know some of the provocateurs. There was a lot of incidents around here where there were people on walkie-talkies who were standing next to a window, and then a walkie-talkie went off, and they'd break the window and they'd walk away. And a bunch of other people would come in and run. And I have a suspicion there were some provocateurs on the right side of the fence as opposed to the left side of the fence. More trying to provoke enough property damage to get a response that could be justified. It sounds like something the current president would be all about. But, it's impossible to say. I know the FBI was investigating those incidents.
Well, there were instances, they say, in New York where someone had just dropped off a pile of bricks. Like, how convenient. Let's throw these around. So that takes some coordination. One, you got to get the equipment to do it, and then you got to be able to do it at a time when no one's looking, or you have control of the traffic and are able to do that. So, yeah, there's...
Well, it's like coordinating things like the videos watching Epstein. If you know who to pay or know who to talk to, it can be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I think it goes back. Initially, we're talking about the presence of a deep state. Players and.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've read William Goldman. He wrote Marathon Man. Did he write? No, that was Ira Levine for Boys of Brazil. But Marathon Man had a sequel called Brothers. It would never turn into a movie. So you had, was it Dustin Hoffman character, and then his older brother was in Jaws. I can't remember his name right now. He was not the captain and not Richard Dreyfuss. He was the third guy on the boat.
The biologist, the marine biologist guy.
That was Richard Dreyfuss.
Are you talking about Roy Scheider?
Roy Scheider, yes. Roy Scheider was played the brother of Dustin Hoffman in Marathon Man. He was garroted. In Brothers, the sequel, he survived and went to an island to recover and became kind of a super spy that the powers that be could hold in reserve. And finally, the crisis came where they picked him up and they sent him out. What I loved about the book, and I'm sure it's complete fiction. We can't point to a fictional book and say, that's what happens. But there are powers within powers within powers. So you have one group that's dedicated to pushing, for example, we can do anything, we are gods. And another group is, we have to kill in order to get power. They're the Bloodies. So there's a war between the gods and the Bloodies. And the poor agents are just sent out against each other on the same side to, as deftly as possible, manipulate things. So I would not be surprised at all if a bunch of bricks was delivered anonymously by one of the powers that's trying to fight one of the other powers that's trying to not have these things erupt into chaos, but the brick people want the chaos, so we deliver the bricks.
Exactly. And, I believe there are players out there that do not like the nation state. I think they feel it inhibits the ability to maximize profit.
The Cokes.
Yeah, exactly. These neoliberals.
Yes.
And then there are the players that want to see the nation state preserved, but perhaps in a way where they run things. They are the nation state. And then there might be others that might believe in a constitution.
I have to say, boy, the people that want the nation state preserved always seem to be in their diorama of future possibilities in charge. I mean, why can't you just be somebody who wants the nation state preserved and drive a bus? Why do you have to be a senator? Why do you have to be a colonel? Why do you have to be? It just seems convenient.
Yeah, although I don't know. I was over the summer. I took a young woman to lunch, and it was pretty hot. And just as we settled into the booth, she unstraps a Glock from her waist, puts it on the table, says, "Boy, I just needed to take that off."
Lighten your load.
Yeah, so that's someone who believed in the nation state. Not necessarily someone looking for power, but,
Well, I know a lot of gun-toting folks that are not necessarily enamored of the big state or the nation state. So, again,
But when I say nation state, I mean, what we have like in our Constitution that says, these are the laws. No one's above the law. No one's below the law.
Right.
And,
the checks and balances, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the deep state that just see it as their game, I think. And it's funny because when I do speak to people who may not be deep staters, but certainly support that, maybe they're in high government office or their parents were, and they are so frustrated, I think, when they look at, say, a Trump supporter. It's like, what? They really do think they're deplorables. And what they don't realize is you don't feel that the way they do because you haven't been thrown overboard. Whereas these people have. 40 years ago, they started throwing us overboard. And then we got NAFTA, GATT, WTO, outsourcing, offshoring. People's lives have absolutely been decimated, and they're hopeless. So, yeah, really are.
Like one of the, I can't remember exactly which episode I did. I pointed out that as deplorable as Trump is, he did kill the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I mean, that was the bugaboo that people were talking about, but nobody could even get a copy to read. It was being leaked. That was the ultimate neoliberal deep state stealth action. And here's Joe. Boy, he's all for it.
Yep.
And then there was some general says, no, he has to bring back the TPP. You're a general. What do you care about a trade policy? Please.
But when you're a globalist, you're a globalist. I know. Because this is, and this kind of brings us back to Dmitry Orlov too, because I could see where the Russians feel truly threatened. I mean, NATO was a reaction to the Warsaw Pact.
Yes.
And when the Berlin Wall came down, we should have gotten rid of NATO, just much like we promised. We promised Gorbachev, that we wouldn't expand, and now we've expanded it.
From SALT II.
Right. Oh, not SALT II, but no,
it was. I think it was SALT II. It was Casper Weinberger talked to. They were negotiating something, and they said, "Look, we won't push into the Soviet bloc."
Oh, was that during the SALT? Okay,
not 1 inch eastward, they said.
Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly we're pushing into Poland. It was like, oh, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Under Clinton, I believe.
Yeah. So Poland and Lithuania are now part of NATO. There is that, like Samuelson's book on oh gosh, I forget. It went really popular after 9/11. I forget, but he talks about how the divide in Europe is really Roman Catholic versus Orthodox, and Poland, Lithuania will side with the West, whereas Serbia and other Orthodox countries will side with Russia, just out of Orthodox. But,
Okay. Well, you don't have to remember a whole new slew of holidays that way.
yeah, true that.
Calendrical consistency. It's important when the family is supposed to get together for lunch.
Yeah, we got to know when Christmas is. I mean,
Right.
Do you go by lunar or do you go by,
I do like that in the Orthodox tradition, New Year's is accurately described as the bris of Christ.
Ooh.
Which is why the New Year is 7 days after the birth of Jesus, because under the Hebrew tradition, the boy is 7 days old, which represents the 7 days of creation, and or the 6 days of creation. On the seventh day, God rested. Therefore, the baby is not really part of the family until the seventh day, and then he can be made a man by losing 80% of the nerve endings in his penis.
Yeah. I think someday we'll be thinking right on that again. But till then.
Till then, we have more staying power because we're numb.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, golly, guys. Well, this is, it's 3:15. I have another call at 3:30. I wasn't even expecting to jump on. I was like, hey, KMO, how's it going? And I saw your invite. So this has been a lot of fun, but I have a call at 3:30. I'll need a few minutes to prepare for it. But, Jim, this was really awesome meeting you.
It was great meeting you. I'm suddenly placing the voice. You've been on the show before. I'm taking it.
Yeah.
You're the guy behind the immigration reform.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to meet you, sir. Great to talk to you.
He's also
Real
the guy behind
pleasure,
Geb.
Jim. I'm sorry?
I said he's also the guy behind Geb.
Right.
Yeah, the Greater Earth Betterment Bureau, and soon to be in hard copy, hopefully by the end of this week. So,
Cool.
Right on. Well, gentlemen, this was a lot of fun. Jim, I'm hoping we can do this again with you, me, and KMO. It's been a blast. I mean, for me, it's been didactic because I now have a reading list from you.
Well, stick around long enough, you'll never leave the library.
Ah, there you go. All right, Jim, KMO, you guys
See you
take
later,
care.
Kevin.
Bye, Kevin. All right.
That was fun.
That was the easiest podcast I ever made.
Let's call somebody with a voice to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Or better yet, two people. They can talk to each other.
I was going to say you probably have the Sistine Chapel finished on that screen now.
I wish.
I'm going to go. Oh, you're zooming in on the chin.
Yeah, I'm in Clip
We should
Studio
one of these
Paint
days-
now.
well,
I
I should
can
read
zoom
some
like
of the-
a... What's that?
You want me to read some of these comments? Jeez, look at all this.
Oh, yeah, I've been ignoring the chat, too. Yeah, if you would, that'd be awesome.
Ed asks, what's the rumpus? I just responded, we're in the rumpus room.
Right on.
And then he asks again, could you please show them the rake tool in Frisco? And you did that.
I
Good,
did
good,
do
good. 6 Sigma 6. Wow. Says, what's going on? You said. Okay, well, that's it then. Right.
Ah, all right.
I like listening to what you mean are speaking about. And then Ed corrects himself and says, men. No, we're also mean, so you're right, Ed.
Yeah. All right,
I am going to take a little bit of a break, get some lunch. I'll be back.
Okay, I'll be here.
Should I leave the Zoom up, or what do you think?
Yeah, leave it.
Okay, cool. Stopping video, muting.
All right. See you later. Alrighty, folks. So I can respond to chat. Let's see. Yeah, that conversation's definitely going on a podcast somewhere. It will require very little editing. Let's see. All right. So no Lessig today. Interesting. He doesn't miss many live streams. Let's see. CF Pup, thank you for being here today and saying the good things. Yeah, I think Kevin has moved on to his next Zoom appointment. Alrighty. Well, Ed, you're welcome to call in if you want. It's the same call info as the last time you were on. Hey, Paul. Have you been around? Have you been lurking, or are you just now arriving? Alrighty. It's not selected. Nope. Just got here. I'm on an interview panel. Been tied up with that stuff. Jim, your ad attacker, host of the Attack Ads podcast, was just here, as was Kevin Lynn from Progressives for Immigration Reform. And they just had a very productive gab session, I think. So I will put that on a podcast somewhere, and I'll do it today. Otherwise, it's not going to get done. So you can catch up on that. All right. I was actually just going to leave this one as flat color. And here I am messing with it. All right. Up. And down. All right. Yeah, I'll have to catch it later. Today I learned that GEB stands for Greater Earth Betterment Bureau. Yes, yes. Yeah, we're 2 years into the webcomic, and the name GEB has not yet been mentioned by any of the characters, although that's going to change here pretty soon. Because there's actually a GEB agent on the base. Anybody want to guess who it is? There's actually an agent of GEB on site. GEB is like a, it's a resistance cell within the consortium. The consortium is the, multi-species group of aliens that are spying on humans. All right. Jim D, I apologize in advance for my headset mic quality. No, it was great. It was fine. No problemo. What's going on here? Oh, it's not selected. That's why I can't mess with it. All right, how are we doing? Good enough. Okay, so we deselect. Grab this color. All right. What's next? What's next? I'm a shug, but there's some narration here. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to make that. Let's see, I'm going to just do another version of that. Let's see, what if get rid of the ink, background ink, there we go. Okay, so Mama Shug is in on it. We're going to do another, we're going to duplicate that. Let's see. Oh, can I change the color as is? Probably not, but let's see. You know what? Select all, copy, forget about it. Put that away, and let's create a new one. Now, it's white, and this one is that gray. And let's go again. There. That. Nope, that didn't work. This one needs to be white. And this one needs to be that gray. What do we got here? Jim D, you shared good words with us in very interesting combinations with good delivery style. Well, you'd think he was a podcaster or something. Those small mouth noises led me to think new thoughts. Let's see. So nice McKenna reference there, Ed. Well done. Okay. Still not doing it right. Okay, one more try. Let's bring character ink, ink borders, background ink. All right, now. No, what's going on? I want these letters to be white. Why are they black? Because it's highlighted? Huh. Okay. Let's get the box drawn around it. And now, let's go back to this. Let's say select all. And how can we change the color? Size, style, justification. Where's the color? Color, color, color. Okay. There. Huh. Nope, done. Awesome. Okay. This. Come on. Nope. I just want to move it. Move layer. What is that scissor icon? All right, I'm lost. Let's rasterize this. Maybe then I'll be able to move it. No, it's... There we go. All right. Okay. Let's put that away for the moment. And background tunes. Jim D, let's see. Oh, I missed some stuff. Let's see. No small mouth, yeah. You should hear my fart impressions. That'll get you thinking. I must say, KMO, there are a lot of buttons and faders and options on that screen. Yes, there sure are. Jim D, have you seen the HBO miniseries Chernobyl? I saw it. I liked it a lot. Who's the actor? Who was the lead? What is his name? He's so good in everything he's in. Oh, BRB, BR. So be right back, bong rip. I especially like the courtroom testimony. Yes. Great explanation of events. Okay, tones. That one. And a bit bigger. Now what do we got? Jared. Well, let's see. Alexa, who starred in the HBO series Chernobyl?
Here's something I found on the web. According to Polygon.com, Chernobyl stars Stellan Skarsgård and Jared Harris.
Right. Jared Harris. He's also the captain in that Polar Monster series by what's his name? Polar Monster. The only thing that comes to mind is The Thing, and I'm pretty sure Jared Harris was not in The Thing. Oh, he may have been in the 2011 prequel, also called The Thing. Let me check. All right, so I'm actually on Jared Harris's Wikipedia entry. Let's get down to his filmography. Here, I'll throw it on the screen where you all can see it. So, 2011. No, he was not in The Thing. See if I can figure out what you're talking about. Well, we're not going to go back to 89. Oh, he was in Natural Born Killers?
Well, I could.
Huh. Hey, Jim. You're back.
Hey. The movie I'm thinking of, the series I'm thinking of, was the Franklin expedition, sort of. It was named after the ship. The series is named after the ship. And the author was the guy who did Endymion, Hyperion.
Oh, who wrote those?
I have several of his books just behind me. I can get up and see if the cord reaches.
Dan
Givens? Simmons.
Yeah, Dan Simmons.
Dan Simmons.
Yes. Those are good books. I really like those.
Yeah, I went through a phase where I read 10 of his books.
Damn.
I haven't... I have them all. They're pretty good. Let's see. Carrion Comfort, Summer of Night, something Song of Kali. There's one about Hawaii. And he wrote probably one of my favorite... This is saying something. One of my favorite sci-fi books called The Hollow Man.
Oh.
Which no one else has read. I've read it 3 times.
I have not read it. Dan Simmons writes in a lot of different genres, though. He's not just a sci-fi author.
No, he's not. In fact, I don't think he's really much of a sci-fi author. He's really more of a... dark forces intrude, and characters must defeat them. So almost Stephen King.
Oh, really?
But with a... Well, yeah, because, Hyperion and Endymion, the forces, I don't know if you remember the denouement and who was behind everything, but they're very similar to his scary stuff. And The Hollow Man is great. It's about a guy who can read everyone's mind.
Uh-huh.
And it portrays that as a sheer living hell.
Yeah.
And then his wife, who can also read minds, dies, and he's got nothing. And then it gets interesting.
He's got a blog, and back in 2003 or 2004, he published a little fictional vignette on his blog in which he's the main character, and he's just sitting in his study, and his grandson from the future appears. And his grandson from the future is a very angry man who's been fighting the war against Islam and losing.
That was Dan Simmons?
Yeah.
I remember you read that.
Yep.
But I thought I didn't know it was. Huh.
Definitely Dan Simmons.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't particularly care for that myself.
It
seemed a little bit histrionic.
Histrionic would be the responses that it got. This was long before the phrase "canceled" was in our culture, our vocabulary. But a lot of folks wanted him canceled for that.
Yeah, I did not. I was thinking that was somebody else.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. Here, I'll put my browser on the stream here, and we can see just how smart Google is in figuring out what it is I'm looking for. All right, let's see. Okay. So I'm going to say...
I thought that was that the blogger Harris? Or
Time travel, Dan Harris, blog, Islam.
No.
Yep. Okay, how can I tell Google I'm not interested in any search results having to do with Sam Harris? Let's see, let's put... Oh, Dan Simmons. Simmons, not Harris, Simmons.
Sam Harris is the person I thought it was.
Dan Simmons calls for all-out religious war. View from the loft. Let's see.
Oh, wow.
Is this it? Come on. Oh, and it's gone. I think he finally got tired of the fallout, or the blowback from that.
Well, probably not worth going to a mirror site just to read it. I remember you reading it on your show several years ago. Was it 1 year ago, 2, 3, 4?
Oh, must have been more than that. I don't remember that at all.
2006. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Alrighty, let's get this thing.
You even killed the server, according to that. Wow. I'm reading from the past.
You're reading from the past? What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm reading the YouTube. You're watching your screen.
Oh, I see. Yes, yes. No, I'm back to drawing. Or coloring, as the case may be. You know, there's a job in the traditional comics. You know, a traditional comic book has a team of usually 4 or 5 people. You know, you've got a writer, a penciler, an inker, a colorist, a letterer, and an editor. And I'm pretty much all of those on Geb. But I wanted to be a penciler from, a young age. As soon as I knew the different jobs of a comic book, of producing a comic book, that's the one I was interested in. And drawing, as it turns out, is a fairly small portion of the time I spend creating these comics. I'm not drawing now, I'm adding tones. And really,
would tones be the colorist job?
Yeah. I mean, this is a black and white production, so I can't say I'm coloring it exactly, but yeah, I'm adding tones. And this takes much longer than the actual drawing, and the drawing is really the only thing I'm interested in. It's the only thing I really trained for or wanted to do in comics. And these days, I'm more interested in the writing of it. So I don't want to be relieved of writing duties, but I would like to be relieved of some of these art duties.
We'll figure out a way of getting you an Andy Warhol style factory.
Yeah, I have no issues with that. Yeah.
I do like the way that your tool can shade in the white and leave the black outline intact.
Yeah, well, they're on different layers.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
So
I believe you.
Yeah, these black lines here are on this layer, background ink, and I'm 2 layers below it here on background tones. So let's see. Now, this is this is not going to include any red, and yet here I am filling in this shape with red. Why do that? Well, because it's going to be white. But if I try to color over white with white, I will be, confused.
Essentially, you're making a green screen with red.
Yeah, kind of. All right. Jim, have you been watching The Mandalorian?
I share Doug Lane's opinion about The Mandalorian.
Does that opinion come from watching it or not watching it?
I have not. I don't have access. I'm not going to pay Disney anything.
Oh, wow! It's astoundingly
I love Katie
good
Sackhoff.
This season. What's that?
Oh, I love Katie Sackhoff. I'd love to see it, but I'm not giving Disney my money.
Huh. Yeah. I don't like them, but I do like that product, and I do want to support that direction for Star Wars. You know, when Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, he entrusted the care of, you know, his baby to two people, Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni. And Kathleen Kennedy apparently doesn't give two shits about Star Wars, but she wanted to use it as a platform for pushing feminism in, you know, really lame stories. And Dave Filoni, you know, who had been the showrunner on Star Wars: The Clone Wars for 5 years or 7 years or 10 years or whatever it was, you know, he teamed up with Jon Favreau, and they're creating The Mandalorian, which is like, you know, the animated series brought to life. So, you know, I definitely want to send the message to Bob Iger and Bob Chapek that I will not pay you any money whatsoever for that Kathleen Kennedy bullshit. So I definitely did not see Rise of Skywalker in the theaters. But I definitely want more of what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are doing. So, you know, if I have to send Disney $7 a month to convey that message, that's $7 well spent, from my perspective. Because, you know, I care about Star Wars quite a bit.
No, I do too. I
Well,
saw the first one in the theaters. I saw it with my dad. I saw the Rise of the Last Jedi in the theaters with Dad. I mean, it's one of those few cultural icons that rose in my lifetime and remained. And I was really sad to see what Disney did with it.
Well, what Kathleen Kennedy did with it.
With Disney's okay.
Disney just wanted to make money, and The Force Awakens made a shit ton of money. So they said, okay, make more money, please. And then Bob Iger basically checked out and wasn't paying attention. And then she got together with Rian Johnson and gave us The Force Awakens, where, you know, not The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens was a bad movie, but it wasn't offensive. It was just unimaginative, you know, just a retread of A New Hope. But The Last Jedi was, from my perspective and the perspective of a great many Star Wars fans, actively and deliberately insulting to the legacy characters and to the fans. And I despise it. And it is because of, you know, that I never went to see Rise of Skywalker.
You thought the Last Jedi was the offensive one?
Oh, it was horrible.
Huh. Interesting.
I mean, offensive to the characters, the legacy characters, but also just so stupid, so mind-bogglingly stupid that, you know, they must just despise the audience. I was really upset by that one. But I'm over it, so I'm not going to dwell on it.
Well, yeah, there were a lot of elements of The Last Jedi I didn't understand. And of course, you know, a lot of it has to be Lucas. They did the same thing in the Empire. Hang on, what do I got here? Yeah, Empire, where, you know, Luke Skywalker flies off to Dagobah for how long? 2 weeks, and becomes a Jedi.
The chronology is fuzzy. You know, he's there long enough for Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Princess Leia to fly from Hoth to Bespin at sublight speed. So how long does that take? Weeks? Months? I don't know. But, you know, from what we see of the characters on the Millennium Falcon, it seems like an afternoon. So, yeah, it's fuzzy.
It is. And then he had in, I think it was The Last Jedi, or maybe it was The Force Awakens, I'll meet you in 24 hours. And meanwhile, they go to this one planet and weeks go by. Because there's no way all of that could have happened in 24 hours.
Huh. I don't remember that line. Maybe you're thinking of something from Rise of Skywalker.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of the same way. After The Force Awakens, I was pretty much done. I actually appreciated the Last Jedi a little bit better for, of course, obscure and esoteric reasons.
And what did you like about it?
I liked that the main character, spoilers, didn't survive.
Oh, you think Luke Skywalker's the main character of that story?
Well, he's certainly one of the legacy characters.
Yeah. I mean, he was a legacy character brought on to just, you know, be belittled and mocked.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see it because he was a weak character in many ways. That woman was, of course, like mocking and belittling him, but he had some problems. He, had some problems with with his nephew, and they were unresolved. It's like, okay, that's interesting. And then he set out to repair some of those by taking a firmer hand, and managed to do that. And it took everything he had. Okay, off he goes.
Yeah. I just cannot buy that the man who said, there is good in Darth Vader, I will go and, submit myself to him on the faith that what is good in him will prevail. That guy makes one mistake and is like, oh, I quit. I'm done. I'm going to go hide. I'm going to go hide and drink blue milk from the teat of this sea monster.
Again, I remember Alec Guinness at one point was, they were looking over lines written essentially by George Lucas, and Alec Guinness at one point says, "Can't we just have the puppet read that one?" I mean, I remember seeing Star Wars in the theater in its first weeks and being just entranced. It's like, wow, this is cool. And then years later, it was the 25th anniversary, and it came out in the theaters, and we, of course, went to see the bastardized version where Han did not shoot first.
Yeah.
And the line, you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Oh, my God, that is horrible. Prose.
What an applause line,
though. It was what?
It's quite the applause line. I bet people in the theater erupted in applause at that line.
No, they erupted in laughter.
Really? Oh.
Oh, God, yes. It did not wear well.
Will not find a more wretched
hive. And, George Lucas was talking to Simon Pegg.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
So Simon Pegg wrote in his autobiography, Nerd Do Well, that he got a chance to meet George Lucas and was just like talking movies. And George Lucas turned to him and says, piece of advice, never make a series that goes on for 30 years.
Well, Simon Pegg would like to. Simon Pegg wrote Star Trek Beyond.
Oh.
Which I like Simon Pegg, and I like the fact that he loves Star Trek, but that series of films just needs to crawl away and die. The J.J. Abrams.
We're talking the new versions.
Yeah.
New younger Kirk and younger Spock's. Okay.
And I love the cast. I think Chris Pine is great as Kirk,
mm-hmm.
and but because it's the 2020s, the classic Trek trio was Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
Right.
And they got Carl Urban to play McCoy. He's so good. And but because it's the 21st century, the trio of characters has to be Kirk, Spock, and Uhura. So they kicked McCoy to the curb and they gave Uhura his role basically, in that trio. And it doesn't work. I mean, it works ideologically, I guess, if that's what you need, but it doesn't work in terms of the chemistry of those characters.
Huh. I just kind of sat there and let it wash over me. I didn't really try to pick it apart too much.
Oh, it's Star Trek. You got to pick it apart.
Well, I guess. At one point, I probably would have. Yeah, my closest connection was playing basketball with James Doohan.
Ah. I would like that.
His daughter... Oh.
Go ahead. What about his daughter?
Oh, I was going to say, his daughter lived across the street from my kindergarten teacher, and he was staying there during the premiere, opening of one of the flicks. It's like, oh, cool.
Right on.
Met him. Yeah.
So, you ever seen the 70s animated Star Trek?
Yeah. Oh, God, I watched them when they came on.
So I've been revisiting those recently, and James Doohan does like 80% of the voices in that. It was such a low budget affair. They couldn't hire much in the way of voice talent, So all the characters who are male and who are not, William Shatner or Leonard Nimoy, they're voiced by James Doohan. He does all these voices.
Even McCoy and Sulu and Chekhov?
No, I mean he's not doing the main characters, but
core.
Yeah, the guest stars. There are very few guest stars on that show because it's basically James Doohan doing most of the other voices. So we've got some new messages here. Paul's back. Headed back to the interviews. Cheers, KMO. Later, Ed. What's this about Kenneth Branagh?
Oh, we were talking about the Shackleton series.
I see. And did Branagh...
I said it was the Franklin Expedition, which was the Dan Simmons novel. Was based on the Franklin Expedition. Wrong pole. I can't remember the name of the ship. It was a horrible name for a ship that's going to try and circumnavigate the globe across the pole that no one has ever done.
Yeah.
And the Indefatigo. No, it wasn't. That's a Horatio Hornblower. What was the name of the ship? Essentially, the name of the ship was "We're Gonna Die."
Was it the good ship Colander?
No, it was the name of the ship in the Franklin Expedition is the name of the series or the book by Dan Simmons.
Huh.
And it should have come out about 6 years ago. I don't know if you have the Dan Simmons. I can call that up, actually.
Google is your friend. Actually, Google is not your friend. Google's an evil empire, but they do produce some pretty useful tools. Hello, so speaking of Star Trek, any new comments on Discovery? Parker, this may come as a shock to you, but I'm actually enjoying Season 3 of Discovery. I have no particular problem with it.
The Terror.
The Terror. So, in answer to Parker's questions on Star Trek Discovery, now that they've jumped into the far future and they're no longer butchering established timelines, I'm fine, Now that they're on a blank canvas, they can go and do what they want. I understand. Going into every episode, I understand that Michael Burnham is going to cry. She's gonna blubber and over emote, and Tilly's going to do the same thing. And we've got the magical gay couple who are they're just fonts of saintly wisdom. So I understand all of that going into each episode, and I just that's the price of admission, knowing that those things are going to be on display, and I'm okay with it. In Season 3, I'm okay with it. And most importantly, we have not seen a Klingon this season, and I so hate what they've done to the Klingons, so, not showing them is definitely a bonus.
But I just got finished with Season 1, so I haven't caught up with the other niceties of Discovery.
Season 2, it introduces Anson Mount as Captain Christopher Pike, and he's great. He's so good in the role. If they had a lick of sense over at CBS, they would just give him his own series. And there's talk of it, but they haven't announced it. Anyway, you can tell at the beginning of Season 2 that they're trying to course correct, that they've been listening to the angry feedback, and Captain Pike sort of shows up and speaks for the fans for a little while. And there's a couple really good episodes. There's an episode where they go back to the planet, from the cage or the menagerie, the place where Pike had been held captive by the people who can project illusions into his mind, and there's the woman who wants to be his dream woman.
The Buttheads.
Yes. So they go back to that planet. And I was kind of disappointed. I think those people are the Telosians. And I was kind of disappointed with the actual portrayal of the Telosians. Because, in the cage, what they did was they got women. And they put the big head prosthetics on them, that pulsed.
Right.
And they gave them, like, male voices. But they were just... The point of casting women in those roles was to emphasize that these are small, frail creatures and all of their power is mental power. And in Star Trek Discovery, when they have the opportunity to revisit those people, it's just very generic. You know, the makeup is very generic, the presentation is very generic, but the performances from Anson Mount playing Pike and the woman they got to play, you know, to reprise the role of what was her name? Vina, I think it was.
Okay.
They had great chemistry, and it really worked. But then the second half of season 2 just devolves into incoherence and stays there. You know, so.
Wow.
But you could tell they were trying. They were trying to make amends. And so I cut them some slack. And now season 3 is, I'm fine with it. David Cronenberg has a recurring role in Star Trek Discovery now.
Oh, yeah, that's what Parker just said here at the chat.
Ah, yep. Yeah, and he's a good character, too.
It's like, I'm sure something they have to throw in a little line is like, please, nobody turn on the scanners.
Oh, what a good film. I haven't seen Scanners in forever.
When it came out, that's when I saw it.
Oh, wow.
It's been a while.
I saw it when I did see it last. I'm sure it was on VHS, so you know that's how long it's been.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, was he done recently?
Cronenberg?
Yeah.
Not much directing.
Yeah.
I think the last film I saw by him that he directed was Crash.
Yeah, me too. That's what I was thinking.
And I was living in Seattle for that.
Well, before that, it was probably with Jeremy Irons.
The one about the twin gynecologists?
Yes.
What was that called?
Twin Evil, Live Dead, blah. I don't know.
Not a very good title.
It was not a good title.
Whatever it was.
It was not a good title. The name of the book was actually better. I remember seeing that.
Wasn't it Dead Ringers?
Dead Ringers, yes.
Yeah.
It was not a good title, yes.
All right. Well, you and Kevin had this nice, you know, substantial conversation, and here we're just chatting about pop culture.
Hey, you ever see that one movie?
remember this? How old were you for this? Yeah.
Oh, you weren't alive then? Oh, I better shut up. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you're much older than me.
I was going to say that was a good chat with Kevin, and we didn't even get to Dmitry Orlov.
Oh, right. So, you know, Kevin's kind of in an uncomfortable position when it comes to that, in that, you know, he and Dmitry are friends, or at least, you know, friendly acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
So even if he had some criticism, I would certainly understand if he were to soft pedal it or just hold it back.
Well, maybe I shared over email kind of the problems I had with the position. It seems like he's taking one aspect of today's reality and saying this is the reason for that. But some of the reasons that he pointed out, if the greater powers that be that sit behind the scenes that are doing everything really wanted that to happen, well, they wouldn't do this, this, and this. It seems to me contradictory. I would think I would go back to the position that the actual response to the pandemic seems to be exactly what you would expect, with a large group of people that are uncoordinated and whose coordination requires time and effort.
Yeah.
And the one thing that really lost me, and he pointed out, is like, and I won't read it exactly, but he said something along the lines of, well, the smart people understand this.
Yeah.
and
then doesn't offer an argument for it, right?
Right, exactly. It's just complete rhetorical front-loading. Like, no. The smart people always say, I may not have all the facts and I may be a big fucking idiot, but... And then they continue with their argument.
Yeah.
The idiots say
that's the Joe Rogan
smart
approach.
People. The what?
That's the Joe Rogan approach.
I've never dipped a toe into Joe Rogan territory.
Oh, he's great. I mean, his position is, I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. I just talk to smart people and try to remember some of what they say. But don't listen to me. I'm an idiot. Which
I like him more already.
Yeah, he's not an idiot, but he's definitely a down-to-earth, relatable sort of dude. And he's not ideological. Let's see.
Is that a necklace of teeth or a spinal cord?
Yeah, it's like a spinal column.
Okay. Just spare parts lying around the bin.
Yeah. Mama Shug is this gelatinous pool that throws out tentacles and eye stalks and mouths and free roaming creatures. She is I was going to say fictionalized, slightly obscured version of the Dungeons and Dragons, deities and demigods version of the H.P. Lovecraft monstrosity, Shub-Niggurath.
Right. Yeah, I knew that H.P. Lovecraft. I didn't know that it had been modified with the D&D.
Well, D&D, in that book, that's where Shub-Niggurath was portrayed as this pool, this underground pool with, just constantly generating new creatures.
Oh.
Alrighty.
I should ask you, you've seen Discovery, of course, and you probably caught the reference to the engineer's name.
Stamets, yeah. Right.
Yes.
Paul Stamets. Yep.
Right. I have noticed in more than one series, if there's a character named Stamets, mushrooms will soon follow.
Well, that
and with Discovery, they went whole hog with Discovery. Paul Stamets.
Yeah, they give him the first and last name, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was like just a couple of days before I saw that the first episodes of Discovery. I saw this Hannibal, and somebody, a survivor of a serial killer who put people in mushroom suits, was named Stamets. It's like, oh god. And then I saw Discovery. Oh man, this is going to keep going, isn't it?
Yeah, somebody thinks they're being clever.
Two different people think they're being clever. That's the funny part.
Yeah. Oh, the druggies with their drug references, they think they're slipping them past us, but they're not. We understand. Okay, what's happening here?
So didn't Stamets do non-drug psilocybin research or mycelium research?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. And I remember he wrote a book about it, and he was buddies with Frank. You were telling the show about Frank Herbert and that connection. That was years ago.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
That's okay. I'm sure you know how it is. You research something, you tell people about it, and then you kind of forget about it. And then
you move on with your life is what happens.
Yeah,
yes.
But then somebody else, that made an impression on them, and they remember it, and they want to talk to you about it. And it's like, I don't really have a whole lot to say on that topic right now, but...
Right. I haven't gotten that point in this show, in my personal show. It's like nobody has called me on something that I recorded 5 years ago yet. But now that I mention it, it's going to happen.
Here it comes.
They're going to start going back to the archive. That's right.
All right. I think I've wasted enough time on this panel. Let's see. Oh, not that one. That one. Right. So this one gets deleted. All right. All right. So now this panel. Okay. Apparently I had started to draw it already and forgotten. All right, so we want this dialogue to go away. There. And actually, I have to go away for a moment. I'll be right back. Let's see. Mute. I'm back.
Yay!
Yay! There was much rejoicing. So is it pitch black in Seattle yet?
No, a little overcast. It's not as sunny as it was yesterday.
Oh, I mean the time of day. Oh no, you're 3 hours. You're 3 hours in the past.
Yeah, you're thinking of some guy out on the Atlantic.
Yeah. Well, it is 4:10 p.m. here, and I'm seeing the last of the daylight. It will
That sounds about right.
Soon be night. All right. I don't like this drawing. I'm going to kill it. There we go. So now, let's get the dialogue back. Oh, I'm not looking at the chat. I should look at the chat. Ah, Ed. The thesis that the powers that be are taking advantage of the pandemic to restructure society according to a carefully worked out blueprint. Okay, Ed, what's how does that sentence end?
Oh, he was referencing my confusion.
Oh, I see. Do you know who Gwyn Dyer is?
I don't.
Gwyn Dyer is a military historian, for the most part, I would say. And I interviewed him, probably around 2009, 2008, somewhere in there. 2009, sounds about right. And I asked him about 9/11. You know, was it an inside job? And you know, he's a mainstream sort of cat, you know, and academic and whatnot. And of course, he can't. He, regardless of what he thought, he couldn't say that yes, it was an inside job. But I believe that he believes what he says, and you know, he says there's a big difference between taking advantage of something that happened and orchestrating that thing. Did people take advantage of, you know, the shock and the fear and, you know, the upset? Yeah, absolutely. But does that mean that you know, the Twin Towers were brought down by orbital lasers, or they had explosives built into them back in the 1970s, or, you know, whatever crazy notions were going around at the time? No, it doesn't mean that. So Gwyn Dyer, he's got a book called Climate Wars, and it was made into a BBC radio series of programs that are really excellent. And, you know, they're a few years old now, so the science is not, you know, cutting edge exactly. But in general, you know, the thesis is that, you know, climate change is going to drive military conflict. And that's that's his wheelhouse, is military history. So it's pretty fascinating. I'd love to revisit it. It's been many years since I listened to it.
Yeah, I should check that one out. That sounds, I had to get rid of a bunch of books because, living space, and a bunch of the climate change ones went out. The ones that only incidentally dealt with climate change. I kept the ones that dealt with the hardcore science.
Mm-hmm.
The Peter Ward ones. Those are the more interesting ones. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. And yeah, it is going to absolutely drive military conflict.
The Peter Ward book, I think Rare Earth is what it's called.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I think it's Peter Ward. It's a book about how really unlikely, the circumstances of Earth and life on Earth are. Like, what a rare setup we've got here.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a show on YouTube that I watch daily. It's just, the latest in astronomy. And that thesis that, we live in a very rare setup is gaining strength, like, by the day. Stuff that I think is Peter Ward that he didn't talk about in that book, just bolsters his case. Like,
as opposed to the Fermi's paradox people that say that it's inevitable that we have a gazillion other life-giving
right.
planets out in the universe, and why aren't they talking to us, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, I mean, once I learned that we need the moon to not fry from solar radiation, and the only reason we have the moon is because we were hit just a little bit by a Mars-sized planet.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, that's that's not going to happen everywhere.
And, without our dynamic core creating this very powerful magnetic field, we would be fried.
Exactly.
And Mars doesn't have that.
That's what prevents... Nope. That's what... Somebody showed the magnetic fields on Mars, and it kind of reminded me of an oversized glacier, geyser splash coming out of like 7 or 8 different areas on Mars, as opposed to ours, which envelops the Earth.
Yes.
Because we have the magneto of nickel.
Rare Earth: Why Complex Life is Uncommon in the Universe. It is by Peter Ward and Donald Brownlee.
Okay. Let's see. I only have like 5 or 6 of his books, and I know he's published quite a few more, but I tend to only buy used. So what's there is what I get. What's not there, I don't buy.
The only one of his that I've actually read cover to cover is Under a Green Sky.
Yes, that one is scary.
Yeah.
And the one prior to that, Out of Thin Air, gives the scientific basis for all the stuff he talks about in Under a Green Sky.
Okay. Out of Thin Air: Dinosaurs, Birds, and Earth's Ancient Atmosphere.
Yes, that one, if you've read that one, Under a Green Sky, really helps understand all the stuff in Under a Green Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, that one, do you remember the conversation he and his graduate advisor had near the end?
I don't. It's been a very long time since I read that book.
Yeah, so here's Peter Ward. He's a paleontologist, and nobody knows what caused the extinctions. And there's one field of study saying that the dinosaurs went gradually extinct, and there was then the Alvarez that came forward and proposed the iridium layer evidence as an asteroid strike. So there were these two warring camps. It was a sudden extinction, was a gradual extinction. I believe it was his graduate advisor. He was from Austria, who was a gradualist.
Mm-hmm.
He said, nope, they just kind of slowly went extinct. And Peter Ward said that he had been in conversation with Stephen Jay Gould, who pointed out a problem with the way most paleontologists had, until that point, gathered their samples. You dig, oh, that looks cool. You dig, oh, that looks cool. He said the only way to understand what happened was to go through and list everything you find, even the stuff that isn't cool. And you had to make a quantitative assessment based on that. And so Peter Ward wound up going to one of the places where he dug as an undergrad and re-digging. Went up to this cliff face and he started digging, and he came back, and then they were both at a presentation, and his undergraduate advisor or graduate advisor stood up there and said, no, there's no evidence to this. It just doesn't exist. It's a gradual extinction. And Peter Ward was the next speaker who went up and presented the evidence of his new dig and said it was very sudden. And they never spoke again.
Yeah.
The guy got in his car and just drove off. He realized that his entire position had been undermined and his career was done.
Yeah, because unlike political commentary, when you're proven to be utterly wrong in science, there are consequences. You don't get promoted. You don't fail upward.
Well, I was just actually on the way home. I was listening to. I know you don't listen to On the Media anymore.
No.
For me, it's kind of a necessary evil.
Yeah. Why so?
It's media commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's commentary on media. And Bob Garfield had an interview with a guy who proposed that Trump is essentially a modern-day Gnostic.
A Gnostic?
A Gnostic,
in
yes.
what sense?
Well, he tried to outline the Gnostics date back to, 200 years after the death of Christ? And they were considered a heresy after the Nicene Convention. He didn't mention that. That's me.
Right.
So the Gnostic Gospels have been purged from the New Testament. So, like, the Gospel according to Thomas is not in the Bible because of the Nicene Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, the Gnostics believed that there's no such thing as authority. Faith is based on individual work with belief. And if you believe something enough, it can happen. It's really the basis of the Theosophy movement, which is the basis of The Secret.
Yeah.
So when you see the Trump supporters gathering together and just repeating things that aren't true, it's more than just denial. It's a positive vision in their heads that they can put out into the universe to help guide reality. And I'm sure I'm mangling that guy's explanation, but I was just fascinated with the way he explained Trump's view, the tying it into The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, who used to be Trump's pastor
when
he was growing up. So, yeah, if you say it enough, it may happen.
Yeah, I think John Michael Greer's had a lot to say on that topic.
Yes, he has. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a documentary about the guy who created Pepe the Frog.
I have not seen it.
And John Michael Greer is in it.
Oh, wow.
He put it out on one of his, I think his Ecosophia on Dreamwidth. And so I just recorded it. And it's like, oh, okay. Essentially, he was there to present his view from his series, The Keck Wars. Mm-hmm. And I preferred The Keck Wars. There was more information, but yeah, it was a good presentation.
Now,
the documentary too.
It's my understanding that the cartoonist who created Pepe did not create him to be an icon for the new right.
Correct. No, he's a cartoonist living in Berkeley, for God's sake. He's like the lowest key, nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's like, wow, this guy, I'd like to meet this guy. This guy's cool. And boy, he finally just sued Alex Jones and told him to shut up.
Sued him?
Well, Alex Jones, after the election, came out with a poster of all the iconic right people, like all the people in the Trump administration, and he included Pepe the Frog. And finally, this poor guy, Matt Lurie, It's just like, screw it. I'm suing it. He had no money. He's like, I'm just going to do it.
That's
and he
my character.
Yeah, that's my character. And there was a big trial with a big, what do you call it when everybody sits down and gives evidence? Exploratory, exposition, or
Discovery?
It's been a lot of years since I worked in law firms.
Deposition.
Yeah, a lot of depositions, video depositions that they showed on the show. And he won. Alex Jones blew it off as they gave him a little money to tell him to shut up. And he says, I made more money in that settlement than I've ever made on Pepe the Frog.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, I'm happy to hear that a cartoonist scores a win against the man.
Yeah, cartoonist synonymous with jobs that don't pay.
Unless you're, one of the handful. One of the minority.
I realized years ago when I was driving boats that there was an inverse relationship to all jobs. The cooler it is, the less money you get.
Yeah, unless you're at the very top, unless you're Brad Pitt.
That's right.
And there is some money to be made in acting, and just a very few people make most of it.
That's right. Yep. I mean, people spend tens of thousands of dollars buying themselves a boat. I got paid to drive one. I didn't get paid much.
Was this
I
the
made more
duck
money
boat?
driving a bus. What's that?
Was this the duck boat?
That's one of them.
Okay.
I worked for 5 or 6 different boat companies.
All right.
I mean, the duck is one of the smaller ones. The largest one I think I drove is 150 feet.
Oh, wow. Well, I used to see the duck one, on the streets of Seattle, just tooling around with a bunch of tourists on board.
Yep, that was me too.
Alrighty. And Derek.
Oh, reading the...
Oh, I don't have the
Let me
chat
go
on screen. Let's see. Sorry, folks.
Let me go through the chats for you. Ed points out regarding the low evidence presented by Dmitry Orlov, in a science and law court, one must present evidence in addition to plausible logical arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Hear, hear, sir. Hear, hear.
Plausibility is necessary, but not sufficient.
Right. He also would like to hear Peter Zeihan and Gwyn Dyer in conversation.
All right. So I pronounced, PZ's name that way in a few videos, and some of his dedicated fans schooled me. It's Zion.
Oh, I'm just reading it off the screen here.
Yeah.
Zion?
Zion.
Okay, so his wife is truly a Zionist?
By marriage, yes.
By marriage, yes. Okay. And Ed also points out, concurring with both of us, the magnetic fields on Mars are pretty wimpy. Yep. Parker notes that the moon maintains the magnetosphere by its tidal action on the Earth's inside, if I understand right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly how I understand it, Parker. Essentially, we have a great molten nickel iron core, magneto, that's spinning around and with friction generating the, what do you call those fields?
I would call them lines of magnetic force.
It was, but they have a they're named after their discoverer, the Van something.
Van Allen?
The Van Allen, yes, the Van Allen magnetosphere, yes. They're the reason we get the Northern Lights. Okay. Then Parker says, damn, scientist shade. Not sure I understand what a scientist shade is. Is that somebody who studies photosynthesis?
Or maybe we're casting shade on a scientist. That's how I would read that. Like,
oh, yeah, when I was talking about that poor paleontologist from Austria getting schooled by his student, by his mere Padawan.
yeah.
Parker also says, On the Media and Planet Money are my NPR shows that I listen to. Parker, I listen to On the Media very, very regularly, and I no longer listen to Planet Money. I was listening to it when it first started, and then I started reading other books and realized, no. And I don't know what they're doing now. I haven't listened to Planet Money in, 4 years. Ed asks how Parker listens to them. Parker, iTunes on a 7th generation iPod Nano. 7th generation, dude. I only have a Shuffle. The 1st generation Shuffle. Huh. But Parker has a screen. Parker points out, in a way, it was for Pepe. It kinda. And Ed likes boats. Good, Ed. I'm glad to see you support the floaty things. I don't know if you're aware, Ed, I spent 15 years of my life before I got into podcasting driving boats professionally. So, yes, I can also say I like boats.
I kind of like boats. My time spent on the fishing boats maybe took it out of me a little bit.
You were on a slime line. I don't know how you get over that one.
Yeah. Well, the slime line was on a big ship at anchor in Bristol Bay. That was not so bad. I mean, it was not fun. But the really hellish experience was when I was long lining for cod in a little tiny boat out in the Bering Sea. That was dangerous, miserable, just awful in every way.
What season were you on the Bering Sea?
Well, fortunately, I was in there in the summer. I definitely would not. I would be dead if I tried to, crab in the winter.
No, the crabbers. I know a few guys who crab, and they tell me some stories. I just I just like going home at night.
Yeah.
In fact, the show The Dangerous Catch has a couple of brothers who are the captains of the boats. I sold an old wooden boat. I bought a wooden boat because I was getting into boats, and I was fixing it up, and I got halfway fixed up, and I broke my nose launching it. The winch just cracked into my skull and knocked me right out. And after that, I just lost interest because here I work on boats for 8 to 12 or 14 hours, and then I come home. I just want to sit at a desk with a suit on and put my feet up. So I sold the old boat, which is a beautiful old boat, a Thompson Cruiser. I sold it to the father of the guys who are on the Dangerous Catch, the most dangerous catch.
Oh, really?
So one of the guys came over and actually picked it up, and we were talking boats a little bit. He mentioned he was a crab fisherman. And this was about 10, 15 years before the Dangerous Catch. And we had to rewire the trailer lights for his truck. So I was like, hang on, let me go get my wire stripper. He said, no. Whipped out his Bic lighter, lit the end of the wire on fire, blew it out, grabbed the hot plastic with his fingers and pulled it off. And then just kind of snapped his fingers to alleviate the sensation of his extreme pain.
Damn.
Okay. Yeah. I saw him do that twice with the same hand. It's like, you guys are a different breed. Okay.
Yeah, indeed they are. I understand that there are humans who routinely play rugby and think nothing of it and, are able to walk the next day and it's fine. I'm not such a human being. I would probably not survive a game of rugby. And I see crabbers in that same category. It's like, yeah, I appreciate that they are human beings and that what they do is not supernatural, but it's not anything I could do.
Right. I'm in exactly that boat. Yeah, as I stub my toe. Ow, ow, ow. Those guys are like, they break a bone. I'm like, well, that's going to have to get set one of these days.
Yeah.
Oh, Parker on the chat goes, it's driving boats? I figured it would be piloting boats or something. So, well, yes, it is. Here's the problem. Piloting is actually a really specific term used to denote the person who is piloting a ship. These guys are called pilots, and they get paid a buttload of money just to sit there and tell whoever's at the helm where to drive and what throttle to use. So you can say it's piloting the boat because technically they are doing that. You can also say you're navigating, except in boats you get a big pilot house. I guess that would be piloting if it's a pilot house. You have a navigator.
What do you do in the pilot
helmsman.
house? You drive.
If you're in the pilot, no, that's what I'm talking about. The pilot house is home to like 7 professions in larger vessels. Mm-hmm. So you have somebody at the chart table who's keeping the chart. There, you have somebody at a radar screen. You have somebody, yes, at the helm, turning the wheel, or in more cases than not nowadays, just hitting a joystick. And you have the pilot who is given the run of the ship in certain areas. Like, okay, I'm in Seattle. Look at a map of Seattle. It's in Puget Sound. If you want to bring a vessel of a certain size into Puget Sound for commercial purposes, you have to call the Puget Sound Pilots Association. You make arrangements and say, I will be off of Port Angeles at this time. A boat called a pilot launch will head out to the ship. The pilot will get on a flimsy ladder, more or less the case, in pitching skis, and climb that ladder all the way to the pilot house. And then the pilot will be in charge of the vessel, except the captain is still in charge. It's confusing, I know. The captain is in charge of the boat. The pilot is in charge of giving the captain and the helm and everybody direction into Puget Sound. To get to be a pilot, you have to memorize Puget Sound. You're given a piece of paper and a pencil, and you're given 2 days. Draw the sound, all of the islands in it, all of the depths, all of the aids to navigation, as best you can. Go.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So, and that's just the charting part. There are other parts of the piloting exam. You have to have an unlimited license, which means you have to be on a ship larger than 5,000 tons for a long time. You have to have all kinds of other stuff. Pilots are in another league. So the reason I say, Parker, that it's driving boats, it's just simpler to say driving when you're holding a wheel in your hand and turning it, rather than get all technical. I hope that clears up a really complicated industry.
All right. There was I forget the name of the piece that it's in, but there's a Mark Twain nonfiction account of, but clearly he's not letting
Life on the Mississippi.
Yeah. And
I love that book.
The captain of the boat that he's on is telling him the names of all of these features that he's passing, and it doesn't occur to him that he should remember them. He thinks the captain is just making conversation until the captain starts to quiz him. He's like, I was supposed to remember that. Oh, okay.
Oh, when he was training to be a pilot, that's right. Quick trivia. If anybody out there plays Scrabble, I have not been able to do this yet, but here's a tip. If you have the X, and you can do a 5-letter word with an X in the middle, you can get a triple word score on it or something like that, put in Texas.
Texas. Everyone
will challenge you because it's supposed to be a formal noun. It's the name of a state. However, in Mississippi steamboats, it is also the name of the largest room of a steamship.
Oh.
It's the Grand Salon. They called it the Texas because they were as large as Texas.
Right on.
And then you look it up in the Scrabble dictionary. Boom! They get to forfeit their turn.
Oh, is that how it goes?
Well, that's how I used to play it. I haven't played Scrabble in a long time. You're welcome, Ed. Ed thanks me for the clarification. If by clarification he means a boat guy's long-winded rant about boats.
what it means to actually pilot a boat.
Pilot or navigate, yeah. Whoever's turning the wheel is driving. Here's another one for you that I got a lot. See, before I did the ducks, and by the way, I don't know if you guys in the chats are familiar with the ducks. These are the amphibious trucks that take passengers, usually tourists, around the city and then dip in a water somewhere and show them a little bit of water and then get the hell out. On top of that, I also drove larger passenger vessels that gave tours, and I was a tour guide, and I was a bartender, and I was a deckhand, and I was a captain, and I did quite a bit. But people would always come up, they spent time in the Navy, and they go, I can't believe a boat guy like you said that, pointing to some boat at anchor, was a boat. That's a ship. And I just smile and walk away. A ship is a vessel large enough to hold a boat, but a boat is too small to hold a ship. The problem is that was during wooden boat construction. I have seen a boat bring in 4 naval minesweepers on its back. Now, those boats were larger than any of the wooden boats that were used for Her Majesty or His Majesty's Navy exploring the world by like 3 times larger, and yet they're on the back of a boat. So you can no longer use those distinctions of ship and boat. Technology has rendered them obsolete.
When I was in Alaska, I think the working difference between ships and boats was that anything longer than 100 feet was a ship.
That was the kind of assumption based on the technology, but it dates back even farther to a ship will carry boats, but boats are too small to carry a ship. Parker also asks, did I do orca or whale sightseeing? Not deliberately, Parker. Every now and again I'd be out on a boat and I'd see a dorsal or a tail flap, and that boat would make a course correction like you would not believe, because we love them. Oh man, I love whales. And if you get it right, you get into a pod, you have to kill your prop, make sure your prop's not turning. They won't touch your boat, but the prop agitates the water, and the younger ones can slap it and hurt themselves. So you kill the prop, and then they'll come up in front of you and show off their children.
Really? The orcas?
Oh, that was cool. That was so cool.
You're talking about orcas, right?
Yes, orca. Yeah. The grays and the humpbacks that came into Puget Sounds were generally solitary. But the orca came in as a pod. But they don't come down from the north often enough for there to be any whale sightseeing in Seattle. Not enough fish.
Not enough fish. I used to ride the Bainbridge Island ferry just over to Bainbridge Island and back, just to see the city. Like, that was a guest from out of town. Hey, let's walk down to the ferry terminal. We'll shoot across the sound and come back again. And if you do it just night,
cheapest boat ride you can buy.
Yeah. If you walk on, it's totally free. Or it was
not
then.
anymore.
No. Oh.
Yeah, they changed it.
Oh well.
Ed asks if I ever crossed into Canadian territory water by mistake. No, I never have. I've never made it up there. It's not really that big a deal if you're a civilian. They're pretty forgiving. If you're making money doing it, you have to have something called, there's a 4-letter acronym followed by the number 95, certification. It's essentially standards in watchkeeping, safety, and firefighting. And everybody who crosses into international waters has to be certified.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a 1-week course plus a 2-week firefighting course plus blah, 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 blah. And I took one part of the course just because I was bored and not employed at the moment. And I decided I don't need this. I'll stay out of Canada.
Was it
Canada's very
difficult?
nice. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind going to Canada as a boater, but not professionally.
I see.
Besides, my ticket is, or my license, my Master of Merchant Vessels license is expired in 2007. It's not like a driver's license. You get your driver's license, buy a car, go for it. You have to update your license for boats every 5 years, and you have to have experience driving them for at least 1 year out of that 5, or else it's not even worth doing. So I haven't really driven a boat professionally since 2005. And now that they have a post 9/11 security, I've heard some horror stories. I just don't want to deal with it.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. I don't know what they're called, but they look like high tech Zodiacs, but they've got a big ass gun mounted on them, like a 50 caliber machine gun or something.
Yep.
And they will. I guess I don't know what their terminology is, but they will follow and, from my perspective, sort of stalk and intimidate the ferries, particularly the ones going out to Orcas Island and Lopez and.
Yep.
What are those islands all called together?
The San Juans.
San Juans, right.
Yep, they are officially escorting.
Yes, but escorting in a very very macho fashion.
They are making the presence of the U.S. Coast Guard and a 50 caliber manufacturer of bullets known.
Yeah.
No, those guys are okay. I had no problem with those. They would do that on the ferries. Back, I used to visit my buddy who worked the Vashon run, and they would occasionally do that. Would it be a good idea, asks Ed, for me to work as a school bus driver through my 60s and 70s? Ed? Only if you wanted to be the star of a sitcom.
Yeah, or if you just, I don't know, just want to be driven insane.
If you do well with kids, I don't see any problem with it. I mean, I'm driving a non-school bus right now. If you don't like children, I'd say no.
Probably not a good idea.
But yeah, in your 60s and 70s, no problem, Ed. I mean, I work with a guy named Al. I think he just retired at 82. And he had a 50-year safe driving, no, 50-plus year safe driving record.
Impressive.
Yeah. Good hours and long summer vacations. That's right, Al, or Ed. I would say, though, with school buses, it's a split shift.
Oh, that's right.
It's a government job. The benefits are usually good. A lot of school districts farm out the government part to a private employer to keep the costs low. So look into that first, Parker. Parker points out it's a government job, so the benefits are usually good. But the age of privatization is creeping into even bus drivers.
Well, Ed's in Canada, so they're still a bit more worker-friendly and socialist, you could say. It's more likely that Canadian bus drivers would do better than American school bus drivers.
Along with Canadian school teachers and Canadian custodians and Canadian everything.
Yeah. Well, except maybe Canadian hedge fund managers maybe make a bit less money than their American counterparts.
A lot less. Yeah, they have something called regulation.
Some Canadians even experiment with integrity.
Experiment with integrity. That sounds like a good title for a book, but what are you driving there? Experiment with integrity?
Well, I mean, there's a different ethos. There's a particularly mercenary ethos in the U.S. when it comes to making money. Hedge funds. The hedge fund is a bet that everything's going to go to shit. And, rather than sharing the boat, with the rest of one's countrymen, you can create a hedge fund that will allow you to profit off everybody else's misery.
I did like the Daily Show's take on hedge funds and investors as really drunken frat boy dude bros.
When was that?
With the Daily Show was just after the crash, just looking into like finance, etc. And Jason, what's his name? He was married to Samantha Bee.
Oh.
He interviewed some Canadian investment firms and compared them to U.S. and he was absolutely right. They're just a bunch of frat boys in the U.S. In Canada, they're actually like professionals.
Mm-hmm. I haven't
Yes.
I haven't watched.
Ed points out my
Daily
favorite
Show.
options brokerware is trying to expand into Canada, but they are meeting insurmountable regulatory obstacles. That's called civilization. No, you may not take your Wild West mentality into civilization. Well, now, I would not say, Ed says that this company he likes is in Chicago, and they are learning how non-free market the Canadian financial industry is. I'm not sure that's the case. About 160 years ago, Canada suffered a huge crash and put in place restrictions on what people in the U.S. in the financial trades market would call Tuesday. And they have prevented Canada, as a result, from crashing altogether in 150 years. So there's a trade-off between completely open, unregulated, play over here, play over there, we don't care, and not free market. I mean, they still do buy bonds, they still do buy stocks, there's still private ownership and all the protections that it entails. What you can do with those properties is restricted, which is not necessarily not free market. Does that make any sense, Ed? And of course, it's just me. I watched the Daily Show and listened to NPR to get that much.
Yeah, I stopped watching the Daily Show when Jon Stewart left.
I did too, I have to say. We still have the last 6 episodes of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart on the DVR. We just can't bring ourselves to watch them.
Now, I like Trevor Noah as a stand-up comedian. Comic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But I'm not wild about the writing on The Daily Show anymore.
The writing is the hard part. This is true. Well, Ed, I hope I'm not the one helping you understand your country. I'm just a loudmouth American with a microphone and a platform. Well, that explains my podcasting, too.
Yeah. Well.
Ooh. Parker recently read that Congress passed a law prohibiting anonymous shell companies. Well, okay, Parker, except guess where the most of them are? Delaware. Where's Biden from?
Yep, the senator from NBNA.
That's right. However, Parker writes, there is still a loophole for hedge funds and financial advisors. Having a loophole for hedge funds is like having a small entrance through which you can drive, as Friedrich Sade put it, a coach and 6, which is a coach being pulled by 6 horses.
Wow.
Hedge funds are actually not just hedge funds, but frequent, rapid frequency, high frequency trading.
Yeah.
That just needs to end. I'm sorry, just needs to end.
You know, a 1 cent tax on trades would end it tomorrow.
That's exactly what happened in India. Yes. India passed that tax many years ago, and they haven't had nearly the volatility. Yeah, I guess if Parker, if they pass that legislation and Trump signs it into office, that's great. But yeah, hedge funds are still able to fund through shell companies. Ouch.
You know, I'm not a Trump fan, but in the environment in which we live, if you don't hate him rabidly and, and express your hatred all day, every day on Twitter, then, you are a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I don't particularly hate him the way so many people do. But one thing I do hate that he's doing right now is he is making sure that every federal prisoner on death row gets executed.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, Parker points out that the financial loophole bill was passed, attached to a defense bill.
Oh, right. The, what do they call it? NDAA or what is it?
The omnibus. Yeah. And it passed with a veto-proof majority. Okay. So Biden doesn't have a line item, does he? Therefore, he either has to veto the defense bill. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Well, I'd like to see more.
We're going back to war. It is assured we are going back to war.
Where do you think we're going to go, PKMO?
I'm hoping. I mean, this is a crazy thing to say, but I'm hoping it's just a sort of recommitment to Yemen and Afghanistan and maybe Syria, and that they don't, go eyes bigger than the stomach and try to take down Venezuela. That's my big fear.
God, that would go over like the Bay of Pigs.
Times 100 or 1,000.
Yeah. Oh dear. I would like them to do something in Yemen. Sadly, they're on the wrong side.
Yeah. I mean, the thing to do in Yemen is bomb Riyadh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they're on the side of more bone saws. Mohammed bin Salman. I liked how Hassan Minhaj. Have you ever watched his show?
No.
He pointed out, that Mohammed bin Salman's nickname is. Let's see if I get this right. It translates to "father of the bullet," and then he pointed out that El Chapo means shorty.
Does it really?
That's what he said. I haven't double checked that one, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Was El Chapo short?
So, yeah.
Or he's still alive, isn't he? He's doing life sentence.
Yeah, he's in prison
in the U.S.
Yeah. More bone saws. Yep, it is dark.
Quite literally dark now for me. The sun has thoroughly set.
Well, that means I have 3 hours.
Well, maybe a little less since you're slightly further north than I am.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You southern folk.
Yeah. Southern
enjoying all
Vermonters.
that light.
I do live in southern Vermont.
Abu Rasasa. That's it. Thank you, Ed. Abu Rasasa.
Father of the bullet. All right.
Yeah, his power is real. That's true. When he wiped out Khashoggi, everybody started getting upset, and I guess his reaction was, "What's the problem? I do this all the time." I was like, "Well, he was working for an American firm. That's what." Or
he was an American citizen.
Oh, that was the deal. Okay, his power is real, and American citizenship is also a fact.
It is a fact. It's not enough to get him in trouble, though. Not significant trouble.
No, we have too many SUVs that need Abu Rasasa's attention.
Not really, though. I mean, Saudi Arabia's big client these days is China. The U.S. isn't importing oil from Saudi Arabia in quantity anymore.
Okay, that's true, but we've also given him a military, so we have all these unfortunate arrangements with him at the moment.
Yeah, I mean as I understand it, this comes from Peter Zion that the Saudi military is all U.S. equipment, and really it's unmanned. It's just sitting there waiting for U.S. soldiers to come along and operate the stuff in a time of need. But they don't have much of a military of their own.
Yeah, I imagine they don't have near the population to call up a good population.
Well, they don't have the population, and they don't have the work ethic.
Underground marble mines in southern Vermont toward the western side. Cool.
Huh. I do not know
Ed
these.
points out the Vermont marble was used to build the New York Public Library.
Oh, you know what? I remember not the New York Public Library, but the Brooklyn Library. I think I remember reading something about the marble coming from Vermont.
Cool. I will say it would be really cool to go to a giant underground marble mine. Just to shout and hear the echo like this.
It would. I would be up for that.
Like the salt mines in Louisiana that they use to store, I don't know, Tabasco sauce or something. I've seen pictures of it. It's like, wow, that would be really neat to visit. The great salt voids.
It's been a long time since I've been in a big cave, but I do enjoy, like cave tours, things like that.
A little splunking.
Well, not spelunking, but more, riding the tram through, or walking along the well-trod path, the well-marked path. No, I'm not really much for... What's that?
I can't say I've gone into something where I couldn't back out easily. I haven't gone into one with a tram before, but I've been in a few, like the Lewis and Clark Caves in Oregon, or the Montana, and the Oregon Caves were in Oregon. So you have to do a little sliding down some well-known paths, but there wasn't a monorail.
Well, there are some very large caves in the Ozarks. And there's one that, your admission to Silver Dollar City gets you access to the cave tour as well. That's maybe the last big cave I was ever in. And I may not have been old enough to drive at the time. Not sure.
Silver Dollar City? Where's that?
It's near Branson, Missouri.
Huh.
In the Ozarks.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I was trying to show some.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say it's 5:01. Stream ends at 5, although I am going to finish highlighting this character, and then I'll be done for the day.
So Parker points out there was this old house video with the tour of the mines on YouTube.
Oh,
that sounds cool. I'll have to look at that.
Does sound cool.
Ed points out in the summer of 2015,
what's happening?
Jedzia, and I visited the New York Public Library, admired the marble, and then swam in Vermont Marble Quarry on our drive back to Montreal, completing the circle. Mexico has some seriously huge caves. That's good to know. Probably serious, like the Carlsbad Caverns, probably the same formation. And Ed is afraid the live stream will end soon.
It will.
Ed is right.
Ed's fears are grounded.
The clock doth tick.
And I didn't accomplish nearly as much as I had anticipated in this live stream. All right.
Well, some days you're the windshield.
Some days you eat the bar, and some days the bar eats you. I remember seeing The Big Lebowski in the theater. It was at the what Like what's the newer upscale shopping center near Westlake Plaza?
Oh, Pacific Place.
Is that it? There's a movie theater there, right?
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Actually,
Up at the top.
there's another movie theater though closer to the convention center in that same neighborhood though. I think that's where I saw The Big Lebowski.
Pacific Place. Is that the one with used to have GameWorks in the bottom? The theaters are at the top.
It sounds familiar. I just have to look at the map. So, map of downtown Seattle.
It's very close to Westlake Plaza. Just a little bit south on 5th.
See, there was a time in my life when that would have painted a very clear picture in my mind, and that time has passed. But now I have to look at a map.
Ed points out that there was a sequel to The Big Lebowski called The Jesus Rolls.
Oh, really?
Not by the Coen brothers, I'm afraid. It had very poor ratings, and it's not really a sequel. Okay, well, if it was the Coen brothers, I would have seen it, I think.
So, who was it that played Jesus in...
Jesus?
Yeah. No, he was Jesus.
Oh. Yeah.
His name was Jesus.
Did you... The funniest part about him was when he was walking up to a house where he had to report himself as a sexual predator.
Yeah.
And he had this... I don't know if you noticed, he had a huge fake dong in. They had really tight pants on him. That was John Turturro.
Yes. So I stood behind John Turturro in line for beverages when the Moth held an event in Greenwood Cemetery.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He was in great shape. You know, he's not an actor that I think of as being like a really physical guy, but man, he was clearly hitting the gym.
Well, I imagine it's like anything on the, what do you call it? You put yourself on TV or on the big screen. If you don't work out a lot in real life, you look like John Goodman.
Exactly.
So we probably look like John Goodman. Okay, I probably look like John Goodman on screen.
Well,
not going to say anything about you. I've only seen your face on the thing.
This is the beginning of week 2 with my gym being closed. They just closed their doors because of COVID.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I drive around with a total of maybe 10 people a day.
All right. Empty
but
buses.
These are the people who, they have no other way of getting to work, and they actually have to work, so, I got to get them there.
Right. Alrighty. Well, hey, I think we have come to the end here. So
Sounds good.
I'll kill the stream